Well, we're at week 3 of Advent. And yet today I'm not going to share with you one of those typical Advent scriptures. We're not going to look at the Christmas story. There's no baby Jesus. There's no prophecy about him coming to be with us. And yet we're going to talk about something that I think is crucial for us every time of year, but especially this time of year. I really want to help your Christmas experience to be better. Specifically, I want to talk about dealing with people that are hard to love, which is a timely thing. In the news, we see all kinds of stuff about people who are hard to love and the way that they're treating other people, whether it will be in parks or at grocery stores. I even saw, recently there has been a bunch of different fist fights at Walt Disney World, the happiest place on earth, the most magical place in the world, and people are coming to blows on rides and on boats and in parking lots. We are a culture right now that is full of meanness. We are hurt people. We are easily offended people who are quick to anger and quick to judgment. And this doesn't just happen out there. This happens around dinner tables all the time this time of year. If you don't know who the difficult person in your group of loved ones is, then maybe it's you. I'm talking about the people when you gather together each year that you have to prep for before you show up at the meal. You say, okay, what can I wear or what can I not wear that's not going to cause an argument when we get together? Okay, kids, these are the list of topics that we are going to avoid while we're together tonight so that we can have a nice night and go home and breathe easier when this is over. So please, whatever you do, don't bring this up. And it used to be that there was pretty simple things to talk about, right? What do you not talk about in appropriate company? You don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics. And yet we've added a third one in over the last couple of years of science. And so now we have this unholy trinity because everyone gets together and those three things are affecting us more than anything else right now in the midst of all kinds of crises and dilemmas and stuff that are going on. It's almost impossible not to talk about them. And yet we do something else. We don't just talk about them individually. Now we mix them all together. So we're talking about things that are going on with the pandemic, and we talk about how the politics are playing into it, and we talk about how our faith is playing into it, and then we talk about how we look at science based on our politics and based on our faith, and they're all mixed together, and what we end up with is a bunch of really mean people who are easily offended and who easily offend others. Offense is rising. And it's because of who we are as individuals and as human beings. Human beings are made with some vulnerabilities. And so we get hurt. We're made to have to need rest and to need to be recharged. And we're running so hard, so fast, with so many things coming at us at the same time that we are just on edge and we're on empty. And so we do what Rick Warren told us decades ago when they started Celebrate Recovery. Hurt people hurt people. And that is where we live right now. And just because you're going to a Christmas party or a gathering at someone's home doesn't mean that those things stay away. You bring them with you. The problem is, we are called to live these victorious lives. We're called to live lives that declare to the world who Jesus Christ is. And we can't do that when we keep living like we're offended. Living offended is not living in victory. And I'm not talking about legitimately fighting for truth. I'm not talking about legitimately trying to make things right and just in the world in the way that God has intended us to fight. I'm talking about the ways that we get offended and how that offense takes root inside of us and blocks us from everything else. Because that's what it really wants to do. Being offended puts a wall up. Internally, when we get offended internally, we're like, hey, that stings, that hurts you in some way. You might not even need to know why it hurts you, it just does. And so you turn your attention to it because it hurts. The other night I was looking for a Lego piece that had dropped for my son, and we were looking around the room, and I had to pick up the recliner and get underneath it to look for the final piece. And I found it, and I got excited, and I held it up and said, hey, I found it, and I let the recliner down, not realizing that I was not out of the way yet. And so it comes crashing down with its leg on my knee. And I got to tell you, for the next few minutes, I was not aware of any other part of my body except my knee, where it just got smashed by the recliner. The thing about being offended is the offense happens. We draw our attention to it. That's not being offended. What happens when we're offended is we keep re-dropping it. It's like a scab that you keep re-picking at and making it bleed again and again and again. Because when you get offended, whatever happened to make an offense against you gets replayed over and over and over again in your mind until it takes root. And when it takes root, it doesn't just turn into offense, it turns into bitterness that spreads out and infects more than you realize. Because now when you are living an offended kind of life, things that do not have anything to do with what originally offended you will start to set you off. People that typically you don't have a problem with will be upsetting to you and frustrating to you. Because they will do something or say something, and you already are tied into this level of being offended, that when it hits that nerve, when it touches that root, it's going to send a shock wave through you and get you to go back to that place again, to pick at the scab, to only see that. And it grows bigger and bigger and bigger until that's all we can see. It becomes a wall we can't see past. You walk around, can you believe them? The audacity of some people to say that to me, of anybody. And it doesn't matter what else happens in your relationship with that person or in the context of a party or a group that you're at. All you can see is the offense against you. And guess what? Our enemy loves it. He loves it. Because when you are offended and there's this wall there, what that wall is doing is it's putting a barrier between you and other people. It is a relationship breakdown. Because when you are offended, you don't trust people very much. And when you don't trust people very much because they might hurt you or they have hurt you, you are not going to have intimacy with them where you get the encouragement that you need, the correction that you need, the refilling that you need from each other. And so it robs you of those relationships. And when you don't have those things, well, that peace that's supposed to come, that we focus on during Advent, isn't going to be there now. And our hope for the future gets robbed too. Because all you can see isn't what's coming next. All you can see is what's been done to you. When you're offended, there's a wall. And that wall becomes all you can see, and that wall becomes how you deal with life. Because you just see what's in front of you, and you're like, I've got to find a way to deal with this thing. And for some of you, that means you're just going to sit down and give up. But for most of us, that means we're going to lash out in some way to try and get past the wall, to get through that wall, because we want more than what we've got. And so we lash out at it, but what we really lash out at is the other people around us. So the ones that have hurt you, right? Well, if they've hurt you, then you can hurt them back because you're justified in doing it. An eye for an eye. When you're in an argument with somebody and they say something you don't like, when they think you're wrong, well, now you've got to prove that you are right. You're the one that's correct. You have all the information that you need. And so you've kept receipts on these things. You've watched the YouTube videos. You turned on your favorite news channel. They told you exactly what you needed to hear, exactly what you wanted to hear. Now you're going to go tell somebody else about it because you have got to be right. And this is the opposite of how love works, because love keeps no record of wrongs, but offended people keep the receipts. They're like those with people with the wallets that are shuffled. Mine's like that sometimes, where the wallets are so full of receipts that they've got to go turn in and itemize and all that stuff. Oh, they keep the receipts when they're offended. You ever been in an argument with somebody who's easily offended, and not only are they going to bring up what just happened, they're going to bring up what happened 10 years ago? They keep the receipts. And they want you to know that they are justified in doing that. They want you to know that they are in the right, and you want to be proven right. Everyone else is wrong. Everyone else doesn't get it, but you are the one who understands how the world works. And you can't believe that they would think anything different. It goes around and around. You've been in these conversations, right? My guess is we've all been on both sides of that conversation. And when you feel offended and you're pushing against the wall, you feel justified in how you do it. Because you have judged the people that have hurt you, the people that have offended you, and they deserve what you're going to give them. You see, when I judge myself on what I know about myself. So it's not just my actions, but it's my intentions that gets judged. It's about what's going on in my heart at the time. And so there have been more than one occasion where I have said something to my wife and she gets upset with me. And I never intended to do anything that would hurt her. I love her. I know that I would do whatever I can to help her. I'm trying to speak life and encourage her all the time. And so if I said something that did not do that, well, don't be too upset with me because that's not what I intended to do. I didn't mean it that way, right? But she doesn't hear it that way because while I judge myself for my intentions, I judge other people by their actions. And so when she says something that hurts me back, well, then I know that she just needs more of Jesus, right? Obviously, there's something wrong with her. And so I'm not looking at her intentions, I'm looking at her actions and how I see those actions. And that's how I'm going to judge that person. I might be right. What I said may be the truth. But did I say it in a way that came out of the fact that I was offended? Or did I say it in a way that came out of the fact that I love someone? Because if I'm doing it out of the being offended, I'm just worried about winning an argument. I'm just worried about being right. I am not worried about preserving a relationship. And that offended nature is going to split us apart. It splits marriages apart. It splits friendships apart. It is splitting nations apart. Because when all we see is the offense, when all we see has been what's done to us, or what we think the other person meant by what they said or what they did, love does not have a place. And if there's no place for love, then there's no place for us to be together. There's no place for us to have peace like we're supposed to have it. But there is other ways that we can deal with this wall of offense that takes place in front of us. And Solomon, one of the, if not the wisest person who ever lived, writes about this real quickly. It's almost something that gets overlooked in Proverbs chapter 19. He says, a man's wisdom gives him patience. So we're not quick to judge. We're not quick to cancel. We're not quick to jump on whatever's going on or think we have it all figured out. A man's wisdom gives him patience. It is to his glory to overlook an offense. There have been a few times in my life where I've experienced this kind of sense of pure awe. A lot of them have happened in places of natural beauty, like when I visited the Grand Canyon before growing up, or when I've been on the top of a mountain or out in the wilderness, when I've been out on a boat and all you can see is the water around you. Just the awesomeness of our Creator just kind of sings out to me. And we did this recently. We went to visit my grandparents before they moved, and as we were coming back over Afton Mountain, we stopped because we wanted to look at the overpass, the overlook. And we stopped there, and you look at this overlook, and it's just like any other one that you've been to that's an overlook. You get there, and just the vision of what you can see expands from just a few feet to miles all around. You're looking down into the valley. You can see the peaks on the other side, homes and farms and wilderness and streams rolling through it. And there's just a vastness to what you see. It expands your vision, and you see something that is beautiful, and for us, something that was inspiring enough that we took pictures of it, and my daughter is using one of those for an art project and all these things, because there was something about that overlook that helps us to see beyond what it was we had seen before. It reminds me of what Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 when he's describing this life we have in Christ. He says, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though inwardly we are wasting away, or outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." So it doesn't matter what kind of offense is coming against us, we're still finding ways to be renewed. "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." In other words, when these things that are offensive to us come at us, we can choose to focus on them and only see them. Or we can look beyond them, or we can overlook them to see the things that are true and loving and eternal, that will refresh and refill our souls and will strengthen us no matter what it looks like is going on around us. So in other words, is it really worth the pain of being offended when these things are happening to you? When these conversations are coming up, when other people are around, is it really worth the pain of being offended? Because your life is too short and your calling is too great to live an offended life. That's what Craig Rochelle likes to say all the time on his podcast. Your life is too short and your calling is too great for all of these other things to get in the way. And when we live an offended life and all we see is that wall in front of us, we are cutting ourselves off from the Jesus who has more real life for us than just sitting there and being hurt and offended. I mean, Jesus would never have completed his mission if he lived a easily offended life. Could you imagine him and the disciples? They get things wrong all the time. You'd be there, "I just taught you this and you still don't get it, Andrew? Really? These are the best people you can bring to me? Where's the people that have influence and power and authority? Peter, you're going to backtalk me one more time in front of all these people. I've just literally saved your mother-in-law. I've literally healed people in front of you. I fed you I don't know how many times miraculously, and you still want to backtalk me when I'm telling you things?" Thomas doubting again. "Why did I died for this?" Can you imagine if Jesus was easily offended? He would never have gone able to do the things that he had to do. But for the glory set before him, you see this word that keeps coming up again? But for the glory set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. He wasn't worried about being offended because he would rather live victorious. And so we have to get past the offense to move on into this real life that God has with us without being stuck in angry bitterness that ruins dinners and celebrations and holidays and lives. And to get over the offense, to be able to see over the wall that's placed in front of us to the vastness that is inspiring and beautiful beyond it, requires something of us. It requires compassion. Paul's writing again to the church in Ephesus, and he is talking about unity and being able to be together, that thing that offense robs us of. And he puts it pretty plainly in these verses. "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." The word "all" there is pretty encompassing. Get rid of all your bitterness and your malice and your hatred and your unkindness, even towards the person that has hurt you. That's hard, right? The only way I know really to get past it is to pray for the people that have hurt me. And not to pray for them like I can't wait for God to smite them and rain hail down on them, or let's go revisit the plagues on their lives. No, pray for them like I want to bless them. That's one of the things that Jesus said as well. To bless those who curse you. To pray for our enemies. And to bless someone is to speak grace and goodness over them, to want the best for them, and to sometimes even do things that are the best for them. When Jesus is describing this call to bless those who curse you, the way he's using it, the language is to really just keep doing this. It's not a one-time thing and then you get to go back to being offended again. You have to keep being this kind of person, to be continually blessing to those who are a continual problem. Why? Because love values relationship over being right every single time. So is it really worth all of my attention? Whatever this other person is, is it worth defining me? Is it worth being this wall that blocks me from everything and everyone else? If not, then I'm going to overlook that. I'm going to overlook that. You may even say that in the midst of a conversation with somebody just to let them know, hey, what you just said, I'm already forgiving you for it because my calling is too great to get stuck here. It means judging people by more than just their actions, but by their intentions. They just weren't thinking when they said that to me. I know they would have showed up more prepared if they weren't so tired. Maybe they're just as scared as I am. Whatever it is, there is a reason behind what they did that helps to lessen some of the blow. And overlooking offenses keeps the hurts from piling up into this wall of bitterness for us. It's not denying that these things hurt, but it's stopping the scab picking. It's letting it have a chance to heal instead of continually revisiting the wound over and over and over again. Monica is a wife and a mother from the Midwest. If you meet her, she's usually smiling and laughing. Her eyes have this kind of look of excitement and love of life in them. But if you knew her story, you wouldn't think that that was the kind of person that she would be at this place in her life. She grew up in an abusive home, and it was the kind of abuse that if there is a way to abuse a child, she experienced it. So much so that they took her out of her home and placed her in foster care. But the foster care family she ended up with didn't really improve the situation. The abuse just continued even in that place. Until by the time she was a young teenager, she was sold, she was beaten, she was raped, and she'd been in and out of court. And the judge in court one day looked at this young girl, this young woman, and said she was worthless. A worthless human being. And everything around her kind of reinforced that. And so she had these huge walls of offense, of legitimate hurt that people had done to her, people had said to her, these horrific things that had happened in her life. And she had every right to be justified in hating them and being bitter and being separated from everyone and everything, and letting that offense be all that she can see, letting those walls be exactly what defines her. But somehow, in the midst of all of that, one day she encountered a Jesus who loved her and thought differently of her than everybody else. See, this Jesus showed her compassion. This Jesus showed her a way forward and lifted her up so that she could overlook the offenses that had been done to her. Not that they were not legitimate, not that they weren't things that needed to be dealt with, but they were things that no longer had to define her or separate her from everything and everyone around her. So she could see beyond the bitterness and gave her the courage to begin healing the wounds that had been done to her heart, to quit picking at them, to quit revisiting them and bringing attention to them over and over again. To the point where she had to pray for those that had abused her. Not so that they could get off the hook, but so that she could release herself from the grip that they had on her. Overlooking things inspired her too. Now she goes about, and her mission in life is to recognize others that people think are worthless, hiding behind the walls of their offense, and figure out ways to get inside so that she can lift them up, so they can overlook what's happened to them and see the loving and compassionate Father who wants to bring them home, that defines them by more than what's been done to them, and instead by who He is for them. this isn't how we normally work as human beings. This is kind of the opposite of what we tend to do. And if you think that, you're correct. But that's usually how the kingdom of God works. It isn't something you can do on your own. You do this because you need Jesus' help inside of you to be able to do it. We love other people. We overlook offense because He is the first one who did it. He loves us first. That makes all the difference. I mean, how much compassion has God shown you that you didn't deserve? How many times has He forgiven you immediately, generously, unwaveringly, no matter what you have done to others or to Him? And when we're forgiven, Christ comes to live within us, and then He empowers us to live like Him in this world. You see, on my own, I want to be right. I love winning arguments, and I like to retaliate when I feel like I'm being attacked, but that is not what I get to do, because it's not about me anymore. It's about who is in me. And no one had more of a right to be offended than Jesus did. And if He can overlook it, how can I do anything else? And so I want to give you an invitation as we close today. Some of you, you know this wall that offense has built up. You see it every day. It fills your vision. It's stunted your faith. It's broken your relationships. And peace and love that we talk about this time of year sound nice, but it's not the experience of your life right now. And I pray that God would begin to help you overlook the offense, that you might begin to heal your wounded heart. And some of you, you're ready to start doing these things. You're ready to start living compassionately, but you need to get out of the way so that Jesus can help do that in you. Because you know, left on your own, you're not able to do the things that compassion will call you to. And so I pray that He would live in you in such a way that you would be able to walk through an offended world victoriously, because instead of being offended, you would look at the world with compassion. And you would begin to see, what can I do? What can I bring to help lift these people up who are hurt and on their last bit of energy and feel like nothing is working? And may we overlook these things in such a way that they empower us to see the inspiring beauty that's beyond it, that God is calling us to live into. See, I think that might be how peace works in the day and age that we live, much more than just signing a treaty that says war has ended. Peace is being able to live in an offensive world without being offended. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you would be with us right now, because I know that if we've really been listening to you in these moments, then we have some conversation we need to have with you. Because it's too easy to live where we live right now and to be offended. We get offended watching the news and walking down the street, and when someone says the wrong thing to us when they wish us Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays at the grocery stores. We have all kinds of reasons to be offended, but our offended nature, our offended spirit takes us away from others and away from you. And so I pray that you would do a work in us that would help us to overlook what has been said and what has been done to the beauty that lies beyond it. That you would begin to give us the courage to let you heal our wounded hearts. That we would live compassionately, not through our own strength, but because you are living within us and your life empowers us to go into an offensive world and not be offended, but instead see and be inspired to see the beauty that lies in the life you have for us. The beauty that lies in other people who are stuck behind walls of offense and bitterness. And that if we can overlook and see out, then maybe we can help someone else do the same thing. And in doing so, not only do we get closer to you, but we begin to look more like you in this world where you've placed us right now, today. Lord, we need you. Help us to experience peace like never before. We pray these things in your name. Amen.